Welcome back to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. Wanted to get a second video up tonight before I go to sleep, so this might be a quicker one. But I had a couple of thoughts related to out-of-body experiences and dreaming, because I've had a couple of interesting experiences in that subject to hopefully help shed more light on this most confusing subject of what's the difference between a dream, lucid dreaming, and a real OBE or astral projection experience. So I've done other videos about this. I don't want to be too redundant, so you can go back and do a search function on this channel and you'll find my discussions about those differences. And I may have brought this anecdote up before, but only briefly. And it concerns what it looks like to be dreaming from the perspective of somebody who is out of body. So I've done this a couple of times with different roommates when I was having proficient out of body experiences in the in between or ethereal realm that's still like attached to this world where you can spy on people and be a ghost. So I had a brief career as a ghost where I could float around and spy on people. And also sometimes in that state you don't have a full physical body like you do in the astral state. Sometimes I joke about the orb of light thing. Well, sometimes you are just consciousness floating around. Usually that is the case if I am having a near earth state out of body experience. I will just float up out of my head and just I don't have a body to speak of. I'm just moving around. Real quick, not to interrupt this video, but if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, I'd ask you to please do that. Down below, big red button. You may have to be logged into your Gmail account to see it. It helps keep this channel going. So does the like button, sharing it, hitting that notification bell. Thank you for the support. Okay, back to the topic. So when you're having that near Earth out of body experience, you can spy on people, and then most notably, you can see people when they're dreaming. So if you have a house with roommates or family members, you'll likely see this because if it's late at night, they're going to be in their bedroom sleeping. And if you're like me, you're going in those bedrooms to attempt to gather information to prove that the experience was real. So what has happened to me is I had done this a couple of times, and then what I saw was, as the one example, my roommate, laying on his bed, and this is him in his 3D physical body, and connected to him, or standing sometimes a few feet away from the bed, is a second version of my roommate, looking exactly the same as the body that's laying on the bed. So this would be my roommate in an astral body. And so I'd be looking at two versions of my roommate, both dressed in the same clothing, one wrapped up in blankets or laying on his bed, and the other one standing outside of his bed. And I observed this, and my roommate in his astral body was standing there with his eyes closed like this. And he was talking to himself, having a whole conversation by himself with himself. Blah, 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 ha, 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 blah, blah, ha, 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 blah, 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 blah. So he was like in a trance, and it was very similar to what we might see with somebody sleepwalking here on this side. So I attempted to wake my roommate up in his astral body. And I think I had like a pseudo-developed astral body. So I'm kind of like transparent, but I have like an arm, and I can kind of reach out. And I was like, yo, John, wake up. Can you see me? Can you hear me? This is Cyrus. But I couldn't wake him up. And I reckon if I had been able to, then he would have had a brief astral experience of his own where he would have seen me, and we'd have been able to verify the experience together, which other people have done in OBE communities, but I've never been able to do that with anybody. But that was a big goal of mine because John had had a few out-of-body experiences of his own, sometimes involving like negative things like shadow people. But he was a believer. I've mentioned him sometimes. For a former Marine Corps guy, he'd had some very interesting experiences with negative entities when he was deployed in Japan. That would like come into the bunks and suck energy out of people like while they were trying to sleep. Like it would happen to like everybody, all his bunkmates. Like these creatures would come in. A lot of crazy, scary stories like that. But he also has had like legit out of body or astral experiences in like a family home, the astral plane, that kind of stuff. So it was really cool when I used to live with him, so we could share a lot of stories like that. But anyway, so I really wanted to get his attention because I wanted us to have a joint experience. The couple of times I saw him in that state, but I couldn't snap him out of it. So what does this mean? Well, what this means is that when you are dreaming and somebody astrally is observing you, then it looks like you're in a trance. It looks like you're sleepwalking. So this is what a dream looks like on the outside. So it's not objective. It's happening inside of somebody's own mind. So the astral experience is an objective experience in a real world. The dream experience is all happening up here. And if you're astral projecting and observing a dreamer, that's what you get. If I'm dreaming and it turns into an astral experience, I sometimes will find that I've been wandering around the astral home that I sometimes appear in, doing this, like talking to myself or being in my own little world. And then once I snap out of that, I'll come to find that I'm in a real place. It gets complicated, though, because there's another phenomenon which I think is more common with me, where I'm having real experiences on the other side, and that information is trickling into my brain on this side, and that's becoming a dream. But my brain is interpreting it all wrong. It's like my brain is creating, as Jung would say, like these projections of my subconscious. So I'm, as an example, let's say I'm hanging out with Abraham Lincoln or something ridiculous. Like my brain has created this. Maybe there's something I like about Abraham Lincoln. Maybe I just saw that Lincoln film with who was the guy who played Lincoln? Man, I can't remember his name. That was a good film, by the way. But anyway, so like I've created this projection, and it's based upon like internal archetypes and things that I admire, or whatever it might be. It's very interesting stuff that Jung writes about that. So it's not real; it is a fantasy. And my brain is interpreting real events and it's being filtered through that. So that there's basically, there's like two of me. There's the one that's dreaming, and then there's like the version of me that's having real experiences on the astral. That version of me isn't actually aware of the version of me that's dreaming on this side. And astral projection is when those two worlds like link together. But for that to happen, I have to escape the dream state and become conscious and aware of this second version of myself and then merge into that consciousness. I know it sounds super complicated, but this is the only thing that makes sense to me. So again, the dream part of that is not real. Even if it's a lucid dream, it's still not real. You're interacting with archetypes, you're interacting with projections, you're interacting with stuff that your higher self is making, but it's not an objective experience. It's self-generated, and if you want to have an astral experience, you have to dismiss all of that and transcend out of that state of consciousness and merge back into your astral self, which is probably already living a life and doing its own thing. But you have to like escape through, you have your physical body, then you have like your dream body that's having these experiences internally. Then you have your astral body, which is either going to be in like an ethereal state, sleepwalking and talking to itself, or having its own real experiences. You have to merge back into that. So yeah, this is a complicated subject. We're dealing with interdimensional subjects, kind of like interdimensionality 101. Really, really difficult for us to wrap our minds around. I understand it, but it's almost difficult to even put it into words. But if you meditate on it a bit, have a few experiences of your own, I think it might start to make more sense. But it's a challenge, though, to distinguish between all these things. That's it for this video. If you like this, afterlifetopics.com. This book's Understanding Life After Death, The Afterlife and Beyond, which just came out a few months ago. Still a new release. You can check that book out. Lots of interesting out-of-body experience stories I talk about in that book. Bigger perspective ideas that relate to everything from artificial intelligence to the future of humanity. Lots of big topics like that in that book, so you can check that out. And you can join Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics, the Facebook group. And yeah, so all right, I'll catch you guys on the next video.